Streaming sports, live and on-demand sports talk programming that you can access 24/7. Check us out on YouTube, Facebook, and X. And for the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. And that's just a sampling. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. For laptops, mobile phones, and tablets, download the Roku app. National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk for America.
Football season is here, and SeatGeek is my go-to for buying tickets. Now, with SeatGeek, every single ticket is backed with their buyer guarantee. We've all had plans change, and when you can't make it to the big game, SeatGeek has you covered. They're the only ticketer that allows you to return your tickets ahead of the event for credit with SeatGeek swaps. So when things come up, I know that my tickets won't go to waste. So what are you waiting for? Download the SeatGeek app to maximize your possibilities and shop live events with confidence.
And we're back. Welcome to Glove Fist. My name is Frank Latirzo.
Is that the
part-time?
Was the guy with the meat? That's from the Rocky. That's our producer, Mac. I'm cutting in.
He does look like him. And I'll say this again, Jack. They have the right guy doing the SeatGeek commercial because he is a geek. Welcome to Glove Fist. My name is Frank Latirzo, part-time writer, full-time observer, joined by Mr. Warmth, Jack Hirsch, former 6-term president of the BWAA. Jack, how you doing tonight? Like, I don't know what we're going to talk about.
Good. I mean, there's some big stories. I mean, there's one major fight you didn't see over the weekend, but I actually didn't.
I saw it after the fact.
We're talking about the Patty Donovan-Lewis Cracker fight.
Oh,
And
I didn't see that.
Full transparency, Frank. I did not feel it was worth $80 to get the Gervonta Davis Lamont Roach show. It just wasn't worth it. It was way overpriced.
Especially after last weekend.
Exactly. If I'm paying $25 to see one of the great pay-per-view cards of all time, really, and now I'm $80, not that it was a bad show from the Barclays Center. It just wasn't worth that type of money. As a consumer, you have to make an educated choice. If you're going to pay that type of money, they're going to keep charging you that type of money even more.
Well, that's not going to change.
If the price were lower, if it were like $40, I mean, it's not a question of being able to afford it. I could have afforded gotten the show. I just didn't want to pay that amount.
Jack, I didn't feel comfortable about it either. And then after last weekend with the Better Be a Bivol card, and that was only $30 basically. And then to come back and charge $80 for a card that really only had one main fight that I had interest in. I just said, you know what? I'll do the Jack Hirsch and I'll watch it on YouTube the next day. And that's what I did.
Okay, but I'm going to tell you the big controversy, the Tank Davis fight. By all accounts, it was a close fight that could have gone either way. And I hate when people use the term one guy is robbed. I mean, they're ridiculous. We know what a robbery is and what one isn't. So I hate that term. It's okay to feel Lamont Roach won the fight if you want, but I don't want to hear he was robbed. I didn't score it. I go by the vast majority of knowledgeable people who were there ringside and scored the fight, and they all had it very close. So
let me ask you this, Jack. Hold it for a second. Let me ask you this. Of the circle of guys who hold an opinion that you value, who saw it either at the event or on the pay-per-view, how did they score? Because of the guys in my circle who hold an opinion that I value, not one of them thought that Davis even deserved the draw.
But I bet all of them pretty much had it 115, 113 for Lamont Roach.
I think that would be accurate.
Right. Okay. So that's not a robbery. You just flip one round in there, and you come up with a draw. Okay. And I know it's a big difference between a draw and winning the fight. But my idea, if it was 9 rounds to 3, the consensus, and then the judges had it a draw, but whatever. The knockdown was the big controversy after, with referee Steve Willis starting to count and then calling it a slip. And just about everyone feels, Willis made a bad mistake, this and that. I even read somewhere where one of the writers said they should consider revoking his license. I mean, let's not get carried away here. Should it have been called a knockdown? Probably. I'm not going to argue that, okay? Because Tank took a knee voluntarily, but he kind of took it in a delayed fashion. And let's be honest about it, Frank. The punch did not knock him down.
No.
He decided he wanted to take a knee. He claimed he had the grease in his hair. I tend to actually believe him in this case because he wasn't hurt. I don't think he was trying to regroup because he was under duress because Roach was attacking him. So
he was not hurt.
Right. And I don't think Roach was attacking him at that moment to force him to go down. He voluntarily did. Yeah, I guess technically it should have been called a knockdown. But Steve Willis said, look, cut this out. He basically, to paraphrase, was telling Gervonta Davis, look, I know you weren't legitimately knocked down, but you take a knee like that, I'm going to have to call it a knockdown next time. Don't do that again. Basically, he was giving him a firm warning. Don't pull any of this maneuver because I could have called that a knockdown.
Jack, why do we have rules? Why do we have rules if they're not going to be enforced? Tank broke the action, whether he was hurt, which I don't think he was, but the bottom line is he did take a knee and he needed a break. And every other situation I've ever seen in a fight, that counts as a knockdown. And then to go to his corner and his corner come up on the ring apron, isn't that why Meldrick Taylor they stopped the fight against Chavez, or part of the reason?
Meldrick Taylor was hurt at the end of the fight.
He was hurt, Tank wasn't.
No. But what should have been, the way it should have been handled at that point, when his cornerman came up to the apron, disqualifying Tank would have been a bit too harsh. I think you could agree on that. But he should have taken a point away, Steve Willis.
Should have taken a point away.
You're losing a point. And then if they started to argue, he'd tell him, get down because I could disqualify you, man. You just broke the rules. I'm giving you a break. Now get down, very firmly. But
Jack, I think what a lot of people are missing, and again, I didn't watch it live. I didn't score it. I went back and watched it to get a feel for the fight, to see the strategy that was going on. And I come away with a couple things. One, I don't know how he lost to Herring, and that is Roach. I think Tank tried everything he could after the 6th round to engage him, to try to get the knockout or knockdown. And I think the thing that really frustrated Tank, Jack, during that fight was, and this is the first time I've ever seen it done to him, and that is every time Tank took the assertive, Roach answered back, and he didn't let any of his punches go or his big flurries go unanswered. And then the fact that even though Roach was coming up in weight, he looked like the bigger guy. And I've said all along that Tank's not really a legitimate lightweight. He should be at 130, but I think that Roach is better. He knows how to position himself inside, stay in range, tie guys up. I think he hits a little harder than it looks like. And what I like, Jack, is he finished the exchanges. No one's ever done that to Tank, and I think it really frustrated him.
Well, I'm going to tell you, in this fight, maybe we learned a lesson that they're red flags that not just Tank, other fighters have, which they show in past fights, but we neglect because we look at the final outcome. And I'll give you an example of one of Tank's red flags. I was at the Barclays Center for when he fought Raleigh Romero. And he stopped Romero, in the 7th round? It was an even fight. You could have even made a case. Raleigh Romero, who's not much more than just an above-average fighter, was up
Right.
4-2. You could even make that case. But let's say they were 3 rounds apiece. Had he not hit Romero with the punch and stopped him, who knows how it would have played out as the rounds went by.
But he has that punch, Jack, and that's part of his weapon.
And maybe certain red flags we could look at now with other fighters like David Benavidez. Maybe the Caleb Plant fight was a red flag. He's maybe not the monster that, he lost some rounds in that fight. He really step on the gas, late in the fight to push it over the top to get a somewhat decisive victory. And
right.
We all have Terrence Crawford against Madrimov. There might be a red flags, losing rounds. And
I think sometimes you could read too much into that, though, Jack, because every fight's different, and the matchups play such a role. The thing that really got me was last weekend, Shakur Stevenson fought, and he didn't look that great.
But
and now
he won every round.
He did, Jack, but he didn't look that great. And when you looked at him, you thought, okay, what is he really going to give the Tank that Tank can't overwhelm? Well, now after this fight, I look at that fight completely different than I did before. I thought, you know what? Tank's too much offensively for him. I don't know if I feel that way now.
Well, you could look at it this way. If Shakur Stevenson couldn't get Padley out earlier, how's he going to get an elite fighter out of there? Yeah, I mean, I guess you can use that type of logic. But no, if a fighter's winning rounds decisively, even though it's lasting and even goes the distance, it bodes well for him, as opposed to a fighter losing rounds and then delivering the big punch or coming on very late in the fight to pull it out. I mean, there's certain red flags there that we got to maybe look. I guess you could say it for any fighter, like you just pointed out, in a sense. Like I could say Alexander Usyk. The Fury fights are red flags because Fury's a great fighter, at least in the modern sense. I mean, but
okay, Derek
Chisora pushed Usyk close. Usyk had to come on late. Maybe that's a red flag,
Or I think it's more of a style matchup. I mean, Jack, we see it all the time where guys that aren't so elite give elite guys trouble because of their styles.
But they don't win rounds against them, a lot of rounds. That's the thing about it. No one won. Once Ali became champion, the first coming of him, no one pushed him close. And he was in with, some pretty good fighters. I mean, they gave him trouble. Chuvalo gave him trouble, but Chuvalo didn't win rounds against him in the real sense. But whatever. But the point is with Tank now, a draw. His perfect record is blemished. I don't think it hurts him as an attraction. I think he's as big as he's still going to be, and he's still going to be one of the big marquee names. And, Tank's fight with Roach grossed the second most amount of money for live event for the Barclays Center.
That amazes me.
So Tank is not going to lose his marketability on this fight. He didn't lose the fight at the end. He'll come back. He's a big name. Does he want to fight Roach? That's the question. I guess, I'd have to watch the film more, but Tank would be favored in the rematch. But would Roach push him very close over the distance again? And we don't know.
From what I saw, I think so. Because Tank's advantage is his offense. And in this fight, he came up against a guy who asserted himself back and answered his offense, and he really could never take the lead or dominate him. And what would change in a rematch? Roach would be more confident, and I do think he is the bigger, stronger guy. I would pick Tank, but I wouldn't bet a lot of money on it.
Is this a blessing in disguise for Shakur Stevenson? Because now
Yes.
Roach becomes a viable opponent for Stevenson, and His
Yep.
Excellency could pay Roach the money. He fights Stevenson, and if Stevenson beats Roach, he just has to get a W in reality. But if he beats him decisively, he has the edge in the war. Words with Tank, you know.
I agree. That's why I was surprised that Tank wasn't overwhelming. I said that after the fight when I heard the result. I didn't see it when I made this. I can't believe that he wasn't overwhelming, knowing that Stevenson just fought and they were going to be compared back to each other, and Stevenson comes out ahead.
Well, was Tank bad, or was he good? And is it a question of Roach maybe being about as good as Tank, or nearly as good as Tank? Why the fight played out the way it did?
I think, Jack, because I think because he's big. I think he's a little bigger. I think he's strong, and I just think his style of not letting Tank assert himself, and the fact that he's confident in his chin, that he can take chances and fight back, I think that's what gave him a hard time. So I do think that Roach is better than we thought, and I think his size and style played a little bit of a role into it as well. It's like he's somebody to watch out. I was impressed with some of the things he did in the ring, Jack. I got to admit.
But sometimes when you have two fighters who fought one another in the amateurs, they kind of came up together, and that's that familiarity. The guy who's the underdog, who you think is going to have an inferiority complex, maybe doesn't have one at all. He really believes he could. When we saw that with Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney, they had all this familiarity. Garcia wasn't intimidated by Haney. Haney was made the favorite. He says, look, I fought this guy 6 times. We're 3-3. I know him since we've been kids. I know what he's about. As soon as I hit him hard, we're going to be back in high school again,
Right.
Go at it. And maybe that was part of the mentality with Roach, like he knew Tank Davis, and he really didn't fear Tank. He respected him, and what I like Roach, the way he talked after the fight. He was a gentleman.
He was.
Press conference. He said, Tank's a great fighter. He says, oh, man, I thought I was going to get the decision after I heard Tank got the first score. He was smiling, and he said, look, it's boxing. I thought I won, but I understand, and he wasn't acting like, oh, I was robbed. He just gave an opinion that I won, and then they left it at that and didn't get all hyper excited.
Jack, I just wish we could. The Bitter Beef Bivol card gave us, I don't know, not a false sense of hope, but it was a good card. They didn't gouge us for it. And then so before this fight happens last week, you have Eubanks back, Conor Ben with an egg, and then you have Tank basically suffer a knockdown, or what should have been called a knockdown, and it wasn't counted. And then there's, the decision is a little bit dubious. And then the fact that we can't get these guys in to fight each other with millions on the line. Jack, I've said this a lot lately, and I don't like that I keep saying it, but it's like the sport's getting a little harder for me to care about.
No, the egg thing, yeah, that's disgusting. Can you imagine that would be done before an NFL playoff game at a press conference before the Super Bowl? One coach eggs another coach. You know what would happen? That coach would be suspended, wouldn't be other player. If one player did it to another with an egg, he wouldn't be allowed to play in the Super Bowl. He wouldn't be allowed to play in the World Series. But don't compare the knockdown that was called a slip is dubious. It was Steve Willis knew that Tank Davis was not legitimately knocked down, and he wasn't. But he took a knee according to the rules, and sometimes there's a little latitude with the rules. And he did warn him. He said, "Stop that! Don't pull this junk because I'm going to have."
Jack, you know what that's like to me? That's like you saying that AJ Brown catches a pass and his foot might be on the white line, and it looks like it is, but because it was so close, we're not going to call it, and that was the first down. They kept the drive going. That changed the fight. Why do we have rules if they're not going to be enforced on everybody? And I think that's what gives people a bad taste in their mouth about this sport.
Sometimes I'm going to give you an better example. It could be a big NBA game. A team doesn't have a timeout, and one of the players frantically calls a timeout. And the
Chris Webber.
And the ref, no. If you do it right in front of the ref, he's got to acknowledge it. But if the ref is on an angle, he could kind of make believe he doesn't see it, knowing that the player panicked, not wanting the game to get decided. And then the player would quickly put his hands down, and the ref could always make like he didn't see it or whatever. You know, that. But it's not corruption what Steve Willis did.
I'm not saying that, Jack, but it looks like it is because it happens so much, and it never happens to the B guy. It's always the A guy. And you sit here sometimes and you get mad. Well, you know, we shouldn't count, or this fight counts because fighter A beat fighter B, and I don't want to hear that fighter B was old. He still took the fight. But yet, it's like you're going to give a guy a pass who literally messed up on the rules. That's a big deal. And Jack, if that point is deducted from Tank, he loses the fight. So basically, that mistake kept Tank in the fight.
Yeah, I can't argue your point. Usually the A guy gets the benefit of the doubt and the B guy doesn't.
And that's what we saw Saturday night.
Yeah, but
Jack, it happens too much.
But it also translates that way into all sports. The NBA, the superstars are set to get the benefit of the calls. The NFL, that's what we heard this year. The Kansas City Chiefs, the benefit of the calls. They were the A team. Okay?
And the whole country was against them because of that perception.
Okay, but I'm saying so it's not just boxing. You know, in that regard.
No,
what does Davis do next, though? That's what we gotta. What's his best option next?
I think he has to fight a rematch and beat him conclusively, and he's got to get his act together and be serious and get back in the gym right away and go at him again and win the fight conclusively, and then look for Stevenson. But as we know, I saw today they're talking about fighting Lomachenko.
Yeah, no, but Lomachenko's not ready to fight. He might not fight again. Okay? If Lomachenko is ready to fight, that's a logical fight for Tank. It's a big money fight. No one can fault him for that fight. Everyone wants to fight Lomachenko because they think he's long in the tooth. And he probably is a bit long in the tooth. He's not the fighter he quite was in his prime. A lot of people feel he beat Devin Haney when they fought a couple of years ago. But if Loma was in his prime when he fought Devin Haney, the best of Loma beats Devin Haney.
But from what Loma saw the other night, he probably has a little more confidence going in against Tank now than he was a year and a half ago.
Loma, well, the best of Loma, I guess we'd give him an edge over Shakur Stevenson, even though style-wise there are doubts, you know, who would win that fight. But Loma seems to be at a time where he's got something left, but he's beatable now. You know? Yeah, we saw that with Pacquiao later in Pacquiao's career. Everyone wanted to fight Pacquiao. They were all lined
to have their name on their record.
Right. They thought he was still good, but beatable. You know, they didn't have the same fear of him. If Tank went into a fight with Shakur Stevenson right now, has it lost any of its luster, any marketability at all?
You know, Jack, I think today it has, but I think down the road, where if they get something to ignite it or one guy says something to incite the other guy, I think it can be built up and salvaged and be a big fight again. But today it looks like it's not such a big deal. But look, we live in a world today where things change so fast and there's so much news. World news and sports, it just moves so fast that in a month they'll forget about this and they'll see Tank is going to fight Shakur. That'll be big.
Yeah, well, just a quick mention. Early on the Barclays show, it was actually a fight was given for free. I saw on Prime Video that Jarrett Hurd lost the decision. He
And retired.
the fight. Jarrett Hurd, he didn't get hit that much in this fight compared to past fights, but early in his career, I never saw an I was going to say elite fighter, but he wasn't elite, a top fighter. That's a better way of putting it. Get hit as much as he did early in his career, when he held a title. But, kudos to Jarrett Hurd. He had a good career, not a Hall of Fame career.
No.
I don't think he's going to ever wind up on the ballot for the Hall of Fame, even though, you never know. But he wasn't a Hall of Fame.
And think about this. He retired, and on the undercard, Julian Williams fought, who beat Jarrett Hurd. And I wouldn't be surprised, based on how Williams looked, from what I've read, that he retires too. I heard he lost every round and didn't look good.
Yeah, they kind of kept throwing Julian Williams these lifelines to revive his career. He was past it a while ago. But, he's pretty likable. So,
And you know what? I don't have a problem with that. He never really, he gave it his all. He was never really in a bad fight. And he fought, his fight against Jarrett Hurd was a great fight and a great strategy tactically, where they backed Hurd up. At that time, everybody thought Hurd was Sonny Liston at that weight. And what J-Rock just backed him up and totally took him off his game.
Yeah. But
I won't say on the back foot, because I hate that expression.
And the Russell brothers, I'm not the biggest fans of the Russell brothers. It doesn't mean that they're not nice people and all, and it doesn't mean that they're not good fighters. But something about them, they don't excite me at all. Not at all.
I'm with you. Jack, let me ask you this. Are you excited about Conor Benn and Eubank? Like, I couldn't care less about that fight.
I'm looking forward to it. Okay.
Really?
I'm looking forward to it on a couple of levels. I'm not sure who's going to win that fight. I know Eubank's the much bigger man, but he has a rehydration clause, and his dad is, livid about it. He feels his son is in danger getting hurt because all the weight he's going to lose to make the fight happen. And they had the rivalry with the fathers that was real even after they retired for a while. And it was to the point after they retired, they both participated in the superstar competition, different events. And when Nigel Benn won the event, he said, "Revenge is sweet," like he got back. And Eubank's wife was really furious. How could you call that revenge? Like he was like gloating and all. But they turned out to be friends, actually, until recently. I don't mean they're enemies, they're elders, Eubank and Ben, but their sons are fighting. And, with the egg, what Chris Eubank did, Chris Eubank's always been a bit of a strange bird. And Conor Benn has always been the type who seems to have a feeling of entitlement. So neither that liked.
Neither one are likable at all in my book.
No. We should compile a list, you and I, the least liked boxers. Maybe not least, like the most abrasive, their personalities. We talk about Clarissa Shields, and I want to like her. I really want to like her. She makes it too difficult for me, Maybe I'll get around to it at some point.
I have a hard time warming up to her, too.
Right. But there are a number of them in Chris Eubank and Conor Benn. Conor Benn has been suspended a while with the drug accusation, and he's claiming he was vindicated because he got his license back finally. Guy, are you paying attention? They had you sidelined for a while. He wasn't vindicated. I don't know what the truth is, because I'm sure of all the athletes who've been accused, there's probably a rare case where, one or two of them innocent, actually, and they got framed on it, or the testing.
Or accidentally. I can believe that.
Yeah. But
they didn't know it. Because this stuff is so tricky today.
Yeah, whatever. But I'm looking forward to their fight. What is it, April 26th, I think it is. And it's a good fight. It's exciting. It's big in the UK. To me, it's one of the bigger fights in boxing because of the soap opera effect, the entertainment, and listen, Conor Ben is unbeaten. If he wins this fight, he's in the position to fight for title. He's a good fighter. Eubank is a good fighter. He had to slip up against Liam Smith where he got stopped. And he has a great
Eubank has been in with better fighters, though.
but he got a rematch with Liam Smith, and he destroyed him. I want to talk about a fight that took place Saturday in Belfast, okay? It was actually a big fight. It was an IBF welterweight title eliminator. The winner would be getting a shot at Boots Ennis. But Eddie Hearn, the promoter, said it's possible the winner would fight Boots, but chances are Boots is going to move out of the division. And it was one of the fighters, you recall, we had him on our show, Patty Donovan.
That's right.
We had him on, and he fought Lewis Crocker. Most of the crowd was for Crocker because it was on his home turf of Belfast. It was one of these island wars, but Crocker had home advantage for the most part. But, Donovan had some fans, but it had to be 80% Crocker, 20% Donovan. So what happened? Donovan was magnificent, for the most part. He beat Crocker up bad, but you knew he was going to have some problems, Donovan, in the first round. They're in a clinch, okay? And the referee tells him to break, and Crocker whacks Donovan. So Donovan retaliates, both of them foul one another. But Donovan's the only one that's given a firm warning, even though he retaliated, and it was done right in front of the ref. And then the ref throughout the fight was just harassing Donovan a lot. But I'm not going to say the ref had intentional bias, and I'm going to tell you why. Because Crocker was cut a couple of times, bad cuts, and the ref said it was from a punch. So that indicates, he didn't say it was from a butt, unless the ref felt that Donovan swept the early rounds and it wouldn't have benefited Crocker. But 2 points were taken away from Donovan, during the fight. 2 points. At the end of the 8th round, Donovan is laying it on Crocker. He knocks him down. He's battering him on the ropes. He's finished Crocker, basically. But the bell rings. Donovan launches a very late punch. It was so late. The moment he launched the punch, I held my hands on my head and I went, no! I knew the ref was going to disqualify him. It was flagrantly late, Frank. Flagrantly late.
Intentional?
He'd have to be a complete idiot to throw it intentionally. Because, when you say intentional, the bell rang. He wasn't respecting the bell. But according to Keith Sullivan, his co-manager, who I was in touch with after the fight, Keith was telling me it was so loud they couldn't hear the bell. Now, I'm watching on the zone, so I'm seeing the time go off, but I did hear the bell there on the zone. So I don't know whether I buy that. Now, I thought after the fight, this is what I want to ask you. Do you disqualify Donovan if it's a flagrantly late punch? Donovan had to fight Soda. Crocker was, finished basically. Or do you call it a no contest? Crocker was given the victory. Crocker's now the mandatory challenger. That's a joke. He's not even in Donovan's level. And Boots would just toy with him. It would be a sparring session for Boots in this. And not a hard one at that. But the point is, do you call it a no contest? And if it's mandatory, what the winner's supposed to fight the champ, I mean, the IBF legally might have to honor that if Crocker sued him, but they shouldn't have to make Crocker mandatory, He took a darn beating the whole fight.
But if you go by the letter of the law, Jack, if it was intentional, and it sounds to me like like you said, he had to be crazy to let that punch go. I mean, I hate to say it, but that's why we have rules, and somebody could really get hurt. So I'm thinking you got to DQ him. I don't like it, but it just, if he did it intentional, He gets DQ'd.
Frank, because Donovan so dominated, wouldn't it have been better off on reflection, I thought, calling it a no contest? The penalty would have been you take the victory away from Donovan. You don't give him his first loss, punishment enough, you take the victory away. And now he's not a mandatory for the IBF title. So he loses two things, the victory and being the mandatory, but to give him his first career loss on that. And I don't think Crocker was faking. This wasn't a case of Montel Griffin faking.
So it was a good shot.
Oh, yeah. He that's why I went, oh, he really creamed him.
Right there, Jack. Oh means to me, it was flagrant. He seemed like a nice kid, but again, we have rules and you can't break them, and there are penalties for breaking them, and you lose your pristine blemish.
Well, co-manager Keith Sullivan is a great attorney, so he's going to be using all his skills trying to get this overturned. I mean, I'll give you a scoop.
I doubt that's going to happen.
He's hard at work as this is going on, but it's it was a darn shame because he was so superior to Crocker, and Donovan looks like a darn good fighter. But with that said, sometimes the blessings in disguise, Frank, and this could have been the blessing in disguise. Maybe Boots would have accommodated the winner stays at welterweight, and Donovan, I would not have liked his chances against Boots, style-wise and everything. So maybe it's better Donovan doesn't have that problem, because if I was asked, should he take the fight with Boots even though he's the mandatory, I'd say no, avoid Boots. There's an easier way to figure out, wait it out till Boots vacates the title.
So after Boots fights Stanios April 12th, he's going to go up, according to Eddie Hearn?
Hearn is that, but Hearn too, you got the feeling, and this is what I didn't like, he seemed to kind of favor Crocker. His talk, he was saying, well, Crocker was deprived of the late rounds. We were interested in seeing what would have happened. What would have happened?
He was not in the fight?
Obliterated. No one was anxious. He was, the only thing people would be anxious about to see whether Crocker's corner was going to throw in the towel if the punch didn't land late. Crocker was showing absolutely no signs of making a comeback. But the only thing that Crocker had going for him is that 2 points were deducted from Donovan, 8 rounds were complete. So even if a judge had it, so you never know, one of these crazy judges could have had it 5 rounds to 3 for Donovan. And with the 2 extra points, it would have been even on that judge's card. I don't know what the final cards were, but Crocker was getting a bad beating at that point, and he was basically finished on the ropes at the end.
Right.
So, but it's what it is. Yeah.
Now, Boots is fighting Stanios April 12th, right?
Yeah, and then the number 1 and number 2 contenders there, basically.
Jack, Boots is, I'm going to pick Boots, but that's not a gimme. Stanios is an aggressive, good two-handed fighter with power in both hands, and he's going to make Boots work.
Yeah, and what I like about that fight in a way, it's in Atlantic City. It's like a throwback fight. Atlantic City hasn't had a meaningful fight for a while. Not that this is a colossal fight, but it's a meaningful fight. And
having Boots there, Boots is one of the better young guys in the sport.
Yeah, exactly. And
so that is kind of big.
It is, yeah.
I was going to try to go to it, but I have to go to a communion that day for my niece, and I can't not go.
But if Boots is a special fighter, he wins decisively. If Boots is winning a close decision, he's not the fighter we thought he was.
Jack, you always say that, but you forget the other guy gets a paycheck too. If Ali's such a great fighter, he should beat Frazier easy. But Frazier's also a great fighter.
Well, if you put Boots in with Crawford, for example, yeah. I mean, any type of...
But I'm saying Stanios is a really, really good fighter. I mean, if Boots beats him easily, that says a lot. But if it's somewhat of a close fight, I'm not going to denigrate Boots for that.
Yeah, well, I want to see Boots fight Virgil Ortiz now.
That's a great fight because Terrence Crawford's never going to fight him because as big as he looks lately, I don't think he's fighting after he fights Canelo. Because from the pictures I've seen of him, that weight's going to be hard to take off.
So Crawford is basically committed to what division after the Canelo fight?
I don't know, Jack. If he wins, he beats Canelo, isn't he obligated to a rematch? So it would be at the same weight. So that would be his next fight. If he loses, he probably retires.
I don't think Crawford is going to be the type of fighter who hangs around that long fighting like a Roy.
Exactly.
I mean,
We'll have to give Canelo a rematch, Jack, though, because the money will be off the chart.
Yeah, and I could see Crawford, you win, if he beats Canelo twice, it's a big if, but let's say he did that, I could see him walking away. I mean, Crawford is too smart to go in with a Benavidez because he knows that's a naturally big guy.
No, Benavidez is too big for him.
Right, and Crawford's smart enough to realize that, okay?
Right.
But you never know what they can throw out there, as far as, the money goes, if crazy money talks.
Boots and Ortiz looks like it could be a stop the press fight. Like that has the makings of a super fight.
Speaking of a stop the press show, I mean, this May 2nd on Times Square triple header, how did His Excellency get Times Square, New York City to agree to it? Now, it's insane. I have a feeling the only thing I could figure out, the show, Frank, is going to start 10 in the evening because people work. It's busy. It'll give them time to clear the street. That's number one. Number two, His Excellency, and the Saudis had to have all these political connections for this to happen. I mean, New York City has to get something in return. Something went down for them to get the triple header. It's a so-so triple header, the best of the three fights, Teofimo Lopez against Arnold Barboza. Excellent fight on paper. I think the perfect opponent for Teofimo. Okay, he comes to Teofimo. Teofimo's going to shine in that fight, in my opinion.
But you had three marquee guys fighting on the same card back to back to back. And he brought Jim Lampley back, right?
Right. And it's Times Square, new location. But Devin Haney against Jose Ramirez. Ramirez, we used the term long in the tooth. I guess Ramirez is a bit long in the tooth. You get the feeling, But if Ramirez can show up like he was in his prime, he's a threat to Haney. Well, I think we could agree that he's a legitimate threat.
Well, he's getting Haney at the right time when he might be a little unsure of himself.
And we don't know what the Garcia fight took out of Haney mentally. Maybe he didn't train most of the year. So we just don't know. And Garcia's fighting Raleigh Romero. So that fight is going to be more entertaining for the stupidity leading up to the fight and the dumb talk that we're going to be subjected to.
Oh, Jack, think about that. With Lopez, Garcia, and Haney all doing the same tour and being at the same press conferences. Talk about must-see TV. I mean, that has WWE written all over it.
The funny thing about it is that Teofimo behind the scenes is a nice guy. Sweet, humble guy. I've seen him do nice things. I mean, there was this fighter, Rocky Fratto, and a former junior middleweight.
I remember him.
He wasn't last September. He got inducted to the New York State Boxing Hall of Fame. He wasn't in the best of shape physically. His family was there, very proud. They wanted to meet Teofimo, and Teofimo had everyone wait. And he goes over to Rocky Fratto, and he spends a lot of time with them. Nice. Know what an inspiration, Fratto was to him, how he learns from guys like him. He just went out of their way. They all wanted to meet Teofimo and just to spend that time with him, and too. I mean, just a good kid behind the scenes. But you see him in the open, and you see him as an obnoxious guy, and you don't like him, but that's not the real.
He's hard to take. Jack, I'm punching. I'm going to go to Fight News, and I just want to see what else is coming up as far as on this schedule, because it doesn't look like much.
Yeah,
That I can.
There's no particular show. Well, there's
Let's
the
see.
there's the
Keith Thurman fights March 12th.
I don't want to talk about Keith Thurman. That comes under the category of nothing's going on.
Kambosos fights March 22nd.
That's nearly as bad as Keith Thurman to hear.
Okay. McCallum fights the 29th.
Against Sandy Ryan. That's a rematch. Or what happened?
Zapata gets a rematch with Zapata
Right.
the 29th.
Sandy Ryan, remember before she fought Mikkel Maya in New York, someone threw paint on her?
Yes.
I don't get it. These hotels have surveillance. Why have we heard anything since then, them catching someone, arresting them? How come
I don't
we
know.
haven't heard that at all?
They probably aren't even, they probably don't even care, Jack.
I don't want to say it was a gimmick. I believe, if she says it happened to her, I believe her. But it's strange no one was caught or held accountable. Come on.
I don't know what to tell you there. We need Colombo on that, Jack.
On what?
We need Colombo to research that.
Martin Bacoli, was supposed to be fighting in an IBF title eliminator. And the IBF, is not going to allow him to fight in the eliminator because he got stopped. Not because of safety concerns, because he lost. And some people are critical of the IBF, but I'm not in this case. But why they're critical, Frank, they said this is going to discourage someone from coming in on short notice because they're going to be so worried.
When is the fight scheduled? When was he supposed to fight at Jabba?
He was actually, I think, late April, I believe.
All right, so that would have given him 2 months, and figure he has to spar for a month. That cuts it close as far as the last after the shot he took.
No, but the point is he lost, got KO'd in 2. So the IBF doesn't feel he's worthy enough to be
right.
And now, based on that result, they're not allowing him to keep his rating. Some people might feel, well, allow him to keep his ranking because he came in on a couple of days' notice. Kudos to him. No, you don't.
I wouldn't have a problem with that.
I have a problem with that. Why can the guy? The reason he took the fight was to elevate himself, Bacoli. If Bacoli would have beaten Parker, he would have shot up the ratings with the WBO, WBA, WBC. He would have shot up. That's why he took it, Frank, to force the issue. So no one could deny.
And it backfired, and you think there should be a penalty for that?
He got paid. He lost.
I mean, Jack, you could look at it that way, but he also did help him out and took it on short notice. It's like it's not a true indication of the caliber of fighter he is.
Look, and he helped him out, and it won't be forgotten by His Excellency. They'll look at another time to give him a break, put him on a show. They'll remember he came in on short notice, okay? So that's how he'll get a little bit of a payback.
Right.
The money he got paid for the fight. But it shouldn't serve like a title eliminator. He shouldn't be able to go into it in his next fight off, a second round stoppage.
I agree.
We got
Jack, what were we going to say?
We got Joe Joyce fighting Dylan White too, coming up. Talk about two guys.
When is that?
In the next few weeks. I don't remember the date. Sometime in the next few weeks, I believe.
Wait, if Dillian White just moves around a little bit, gets Joe Joyce tired, he could win that fight.
Yeah, Joyce was competitive with Derek Chisora. A tough, rugged fight. Very good fight, by the way, when they fought. But it's, yeah. So, I mean, both guys have passed it, but one guy has to win, so he'll help his career.
Jack, I told you this before the show. I am really tired of seeing on Facebook when I scroll the hypothetical, the two things that stand out the most, and it's such a tired debate, is Ali against Tyson and Michael Jordan or LeBron James. It's like, why is it that guys just can't get enough of that?
I don't know. There's even judging who the greatest of all time is. There's the criteria is different a lot of times. There's a career greatness and peak value.
Right.
Who could beat who at their absolute peak? I mean, I don't mean to get into this debate. Obviously, Ali rates ahead of Tyson. If you go by their careers, it's not even a contest. But if you look at peak value, you can make more of an argument, as far as that goes. But why can't they get enough of it?
It just drags on over and over.
But you forget, it's all generational, Frank. I mean, when we were young, we could find people who would be calling Jack Dempsey the greatest heavyweight of all time.
When we were 10 and 15.
When we were young, most people were calling Joe Louis the greatest heavyweight of all time. And this is when Ali was at the tail end of his career, even.
Right.
People were saying Louis was the greatest, okay? But it's generational. As the years go by, Ali is more in people's mind. The generation kind of, related to Ali more. Now they relate to Tyson more. And then eventually someone else comes along. I mean, I think it's social media because there's access to Tyson's fights. And, with the charisma.
That's a good point. But peak value or career-wise, Tyson doesn't win either one.
Peak value at his very best, I don't discount him. I think Ali would have beaten him both at their very best, but he would have posed a serious danger to Ali because Tyson
for 3 or 4 rounds, yes.
He had tremendous hand speed, and it's conceivable he would have caught Ali and hurt him bad. And even Ali recognized that when he was alive. Ali would try to be complimentary, but they would ask him, and he was kind of a bit of a fan of Tyson. And
do you know what Ali did?
Tyson was scared about the most. Who would have scared him was Sonny Liston. That's what he always indicated.
The night that Tyson lost to Douglas, Ali called up. He was on the phone with Thomas Hauser because I think he was in the midst of writing Ali His Life and Times, and Ali called Thomas Hauser, and the first thing he said to Hauser was, "You think they'll be saying Tyson could have beat me now?" Ali said off camera that Tyson would not have been as rough or as hard to beat as Joe Frazier was.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean,
he told that to people in his circle, but when he was in public, like when he was on Arsenio Hall with Tyson, he acted like, oh, I could have never defeated him. And Paul Merrick, you're right. They still debate the Hagler-Leonard decision to this day. And how many years was that? 87?
I am getting tired of that debate. Leonard deserved the decision. Okay, if you want to make a case for Hagler, if you want to give Hagler all the close rounds, yeah, you could say he won 7-5. If you want to give him all the close rounds, okay? But how did these fans get off saying Hagler was robbed? I mean, it's so idiotic to say he was robbed. Okay, you want to give an opinion he won, I'll accept that. Even though I don't agree with it. But to say he was robbed?
One judge had it 7-5. The other had it 7-5. They split. The big score that made the controversy was Jojo Guerra, who had it 118-110, which comes out to be 10-2 for Leonard. Leonard didn't win quite by that much.
Well, Jojo Guerra gave Hagler the last round, so he had it 10-1 going into round 12. And even Leonard admits that he he wasn't that far ahead, even though Leonard thought he won the fight.
What do you think? Okay, so Paul, you're right. Hagler Leonard's won. What do you think is one of the another disputed decisions where they still fight to this day about that? You think Ali Norton 3 is in that class?
I don't get this thing to say. Some people say, well, Norton beat Ali 3 times. I mean, come on.
He definitely didn't win the second fight.
Ali won the second fight, so where are we getting that narrative? From Norton would like to push that narrative, himself. I mean, one fight took place on your turf in Philadelphia. Sean Nam, the author, wrote a book about it not long ago. Tyrone Everett against Alfredo Escalera.
And to this day, I've never spoke to one person that thought that Everett won. I mean, the Escalera won.
I watched the tape of the fight last year for the first time. I didn't see it originally. It wasn't telecast around my way.
No, it might have been on Prism.
I scored it, but we both agree you can never score this accurately when you know what happened. But I had Escalera losing to Everett 11 rounds to 4.
Now think about that, Jack. You saw it after the fight, and you had it 11-4 for Everett. And I went to the fight live. I was a senior in high school, and I think I had it. I think that's about what I had it, 11-4 for Escalera.
But the point
for Everett. What am I saying?
Yeah,
Everett.
But how do you make a case for Escalera to win? Maybe if you want to make a case and say, no, I think Everett won 9 rounds to 6, I would say that's a little closer than I think it,
There was some shenanigans going on that came out afterwards. But Jack, that's a fight where everybody agrees who won. I mean one where people are split down the middle, like Hagler Leonard. Ali Norton 3 comes to mind. I'm trying to think, if there any other ones?
I mean, I could name one that's not a classic that just popped into my head. Gennady Golovkin, Danny Jacobs, Canelo and Golovkin. The second fight.
So we're in agreement that Golovkin should have got the decision the first fight.
First fight, most people feel that way.
I thought Canelo shaded the second fight, but if you have Golovkin shading it, I don't have a problem with that.
Well, just what took place the first fight, Beterbiev and Bivol, the first fight. I think more people think Bivol won that fight than Beterbiev, but Beterbiev got the decision in the first fight. The second fight, very few people seem to think Beterbiev deserved the decision, even though, of course, you see some posts that are going to say whatever. But
so in the 24 rounds they fought, who do you think got the better of it? Slight edge to Bivol?
If I had to lump it up all together, I would. Bivol by a little bit,
Slight edge.
Yeah, I thought Bivol won 115, 113. The rematch, I thought Beterbiev won by that score in the first fight, but I feel a lot more comfortable with my second fight scoring. I have no apprehension. The first fight, I won it. Did I give Beterbiev too much credit in a couple of the rounds? I won.
Same thing here, Jack. I did that with Bivol, but the second fight, no. I'm more confident in that score. I have one for you. Who won the first Hopkins-Taylor fight?
I thought Taylor won because Taylor won 7 of the first 8 rounds, and then Hopkins won the last 4. Hopkins dug himself a big hole. People don't realize the early rounds count just as much as the later rounds.
Taylor clearly got out big in that fight. I thought he clearly won the first 5. I don't know about the first 7, but at the end of the day, I could have seen a case for a draw.
I thought Hopkins edged the rematch actually and didn't get the decision.
And he started slow in that one too.
Yeah, I don't remember how slow he started.
Yeah, he started slow in that one. If you go back and watch it, because I talked to him for 3 hours before that fight, and he said he wasn't going to do that, and he did.
Well, Oscar De La Hoya, Felix Trinidad, maybe a draw would have been an appropriate verdict because De La Hoya definitely lost the last 3 rounds, maybe the last 4 rounds. So
I thought Oscar clearly won that fight.
Yeah, well, when you say clearly 7 rounds to 5, he didn't win 8 rounds, I don't think.
Jack, but he clearly won 7, though. And to me, that's enough. He clearly won 7. There's no case for Trinidad winning more than 5 rounds.
Yeah, okay, I could see
All right,
that.
Jack, that's about it. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll see you next week. And until then, enjoy the fights.